Hello everyone. So today we're going to be going through my official 2020 Democratic rankings and to where I see each of the candidates right now being from 1 to 10 and how I see them in the number of delegates they overall get. So let's just go through today's candidates. So we have the former Vice President Joe Biden, the New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, the South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg, the New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, the California Senator Kamala Harris, the Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, the former Texas Congressman and failed Senate candidate in Texas, Congressman Beto O'Rourke, the Senator from Vermont and former presidential candidate in 2016, Bernie Sanders, the current Senator of Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren, and entrepreneur Andrew Yang. So these are the 10 candidates that will be in the power rankings, ranking them from 1 to 10 as to who I think is the most likely person to be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. So let's go through it. At number 10, we have the New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. So people used to think, Kirsten Gillibrand has a good chance. She's in the top 5, top 6, but she really hasn't been making a very big impression in the polling that we've seen recently, in fundraising. Not necessarily a big name person in this 2020 race. You will remember that her main campaign issue, I guess, is women's rights. However, there's been reports recently that some staffers of hers have resigned due to the Gillibrand campaign's mishandling of their sexual harassment claims. So that's definitely not a great look for Gillibrand, especially considering that's her main policy on her platform. So yes, Kirsten Gillibrand, I see being the 10th most likely person out of this list to be the Democratic nominee for president. And in ninth place, the ninth most likely person on this list to be the Democratic nominee for president is Andrew Yang. So Andrew Yang, many people at the start of the race paid no attention to him whatsoever. However, he has been showing up at 1 or 2% in some of these polls, and I think in the RCP average, it's actually beating Kirsten Gillibrand and some big names like that. I think he's beating Jay Inslee as well. Some big name senators and big name governors who people thought would do quite well in this 2020 race, but haven't necessarily been making a good impression. Andrew Yang, I see being the ninth most likely person to be the Democratic nominee. Just a note on Andrew Yang, I think that he can appeal to both progressives and libertarians. Because a lot of libertarians don't like many of these social policies, whereas Andrew Yang saying that he'll give everyone in the United States $1,000 for free might appeal to libertarians, as they would see the social programs perhaps going down a bit. But yeah, Andrew Yang is the ninth most likely person to be the Democratic nominee, ahead of a New York senator. That's something to note. At number 8, we have Amy Klobuchar, the Minnesota senator. So Amy Klobuchar, she is a current Minnesota senator, right? She was the first woman elected to the Minnesota Senate, to the Senate from Minnesota in 2006. In that blue wave, you could see Amy Klobuchar winning there in 2006. Now she's running it for president as a moderate centrist, and I think everyone trying to run to the left may even help her, because, she and Joe Biden are the only two people who are kind of standing out to me as that they are the centrists, and I think that Amy Klobuchar, and if people don't want to go to Joe Biden because he's a male, or his conduct with women, I think Amy Klobuchar could get a lot of that vote. Amy Klobuchar, the eighth most likely to be the Democratic nominee. That said, name recognition is low. She's not really showing up in polls that much, just 1 to 3% right now. But in a crowded field, that might be enough to get her some media attraction. So The seventh most likely person to be the Democratic nominee, in my eyes, is Mayor Pete Buttigieg. So many of you probably thought that Pete Buttigieg would be more down the 9 and 10 side of this list, but no, I see Pete Buttigieg staying in here to the end. I don't think he'll be the Democratic nominee, given that a lot of other big names have already thrown their hat into the ring. But Pete Buttigieg, he can appeal to millennials, he can appeal to the LGBTQ community, he can appeal to other people like that. I see Pete Buttigieg. He can also appeal to veterans, as I think he was a veteran, yeah. And he can also appeal to people who aren't big fans of Washington right now. Pete Buttigieg, seventh most likely person to be the Democratic nominee for president, the sixth most likely person in my eyes. So let's just go over what we have right now. We have Cory Booker, we have Kamala Harris, sorry about that. We have Beto O'Rourke, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. It's still to go through, and of course the former Vice President Joe Biden. The sixth most likely person on this list who I see being the Democratic nominee is Cory Booker. So Cory Booker, he's actually doing a bit better than I thought, given that, you know, he has been showing up in some polls at between 3 to 6 percentage points, especially in some of these early states. I think he can do well in states like South Carolina, where there's a large African American base. But again, I still see him as a bit too robotic to be able to win that Democratic nomination outright. So let's just run through what we have so far. 10, Kirsten Gillibrand. 9, Andrew Yang. 8, Amy Klobuchar. 7, Pete Buttigieg. And 6, Cory Booker. So the final 5 candidates that we'll be going through: Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. These people I think, are the 5 most likely people to be the Democratic nominee for president. So at number 5, we have Elizabeth Warren. So things going in Warren's favor. She's a progressive, and that would definitely help in the Democratic primary. You know, she does have, she has very detailed policy proposals. I think that would help in a potential primary. But I think she's still too polarizing to be able to win that nomination outright, especially given that someone to the left, people like Bernie Sanders, is definitely taking votes away from Elizabeth Warren. In addition, the whole Pocahontas Native American story, it's not great for Warren. I see Elizabeth Warren being the 5th most likely person to be the Democratic nominee for president. So Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke, and Bernie Sanders are the 4 most likely people to be the Democratic nominee for president. In 4th place, we have the former Texas congressman and the former Senate candidate in Texas running against Senator Ted Cruz. We have former Texas congressman Beto O'Rourke. So Beto O'Rourke, he things going in his favor. He ran a really good race against Senator Ted Cruz. He did very well for a Democrat in Texas. And he gained a lot of media coverage, a lot of positive media coverage in that race. Beto O'Rourke, I see being the 4th most likely person to be the Democratic nominee. However, it seems like a lot of that excitement has faded away after he lost. Not necessarily after he lost, but in January, February, when he started thinking about running for president, a lot of that excitement waned away, and we can see that Beto O'Rourke, he's at about 3rd place along with Kamala Harris in the polls, often tying her or maybe slightly behind her in some, but Beto O'Rourke, 4th most likely person to be the Democratic nominee for president. In 3rd place of the Democratic nominee candidates for president, we have the California Senator Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris is the current California Senator, serving alongside Dianne Feinstein. Kamala Harris, we see being the third most likely person to be the Democratic nominee. So, things in her favor. She's from California. That would definitely help in a Democratic primary situation, being able to win California's big prize of delegates. Big prize of delegates. Um, but again, and also things working in her favor. Kamala Harris, she's African American and she's a woman. I think those two would help in a potential primary, given most of the people voting in the Democratic primary are women, and a good slice of them are African American and Latino. So Kamala Harris, third most likely person to be the Democratic nominee. So it all comes down to Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, the two most likely people to be the Democratic nominee for president. Let's just run through what we have so far. Kirsten Gillibrand at 10th place, Andrew Yang at 9, Klobuchar at 8, Buttigieg at 7, Booker at 6, Warren at 5, Beto O'Rourke at 4, Kamala Harris at 3, and the former Vice President Joe Biden at 2, and therefore the Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders at 1. So the former Vice President Joe Biden under fire recently because of his recent, the woman who have recently accused him not of sexual harassment but of inappropriate touching, unwanted touching. I see that being a negative impact for Biden. But I still do see him capturing that Obama machine. I see Joe Biden being the second most likely person to be the Democratic nominee for president, and then Bernie Sanders, the most likely person at this point to be the Democratic nominee for president. Things working in his favor. He's progressive. That would definitely help in a potential Democratic primary. That would definitely help. Furthermore, he's kind of the most issues-oriented person, maybe except for Elizabeth Warren. But I mean, people like Beto O'Rourke, Kamala Harris don't necessarily have many issues that their campaigns are focusing on. Maybe Andrew Yang with his UBI plan, but still, I still do see Bernie Sanders up there in terms of his fight for the issues. I also think that him being there his whole life would definitely help for those same issues. But again, things working negative. He's an old white man in a party that really is looking for someone new, a woman, a person of color, preferably both of those qualities. Maybe someone like a Pete Buttigieg, because he's gay and a millennial. But again, people are looking for diversity right now, and Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden do not represent that diversity. So, final 10, we have at 10, Kirsten Gillibrand, 9, Andrew Yang, 8, Amy Klobuchar, 7, Pete Buttigieg, 6, Cory Booker, 5, Elizabeth Warren, 4, Beto O'Rourke, 3, Kamala Harris, 2, Joe Biden, and 1, Bernie Sanders. So that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Cheers.